What is up, Growth House Podcast? This is your host, as always, Jesse Ray. I'm here with Bailey. Bailey, you were just on the Rookie Bigger Pockets podcast.
Yes, sir.
My man, you're like one of my favorite people to follow on Instagram. I've been following your journey for about a year now. Airbnb co-hosting expert. You got multiple properties, real estate investor. And if you're watching this, maybe you can tell, but my man is only 23 years old. So welcome to the show, brother.
Much appreciated, Jesse. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. So I want to start this off by doing something fun. What's a fun fact that most people don't know about you?
So fun fact / funny fact is back in high school, I work like normal jobs, like grocery. I was a grocer at a grocery store, a bagger at a grocery store, baseball coach. But then I got into a multi-level marketing business in high school. It went absolutely nowhere. I didn't even know what multi-level marketing was. It just was like, so I kind of went down that rabbit hole, and honestly, I don't tell anybody about it. It doesn't really come up until someone asks me like a question like you just did. But yeah. I kind of had that. I didn't really do anything, but I kind of had that business going in high school. And just looking back, I'm like, dang, like that just was not me.
Bro, I feel like MLMs are like the gateway drug to real entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
So diving into what you're doing right now, what does life look like for you? You know, just in general, how many properties, what does cash flow look like? Kind of paint the picture of life, and then we'll take a step back. And then how'd you get here?
For sure. So right now, business-wise, I have 3 properties I own. They are midterm rentals, primarily in the Midwest. 2 of them are single-family properties. The third property is a triplex. Gross revenue is about $12,000 from the properties. After mortgage, all the expenses, it's about $7,000 per month from those properties. I also have a co-hosting business. I have it kind of fluctuates depending on how we do short-term, midterm, and also seasonality. So that can range from $5,000 per month to $10,000+ per month. So that's like on the business front. I do some, like we were talking before, some education stuff, some coaching, some courses, stuff like that as well. But that's kind of like the business front.
I love it. And then let's take a step back. How did you get into real estate, and what made you get started?
Yeah, so I got into real estate just like probably a lot of people from Rich Dad Poor Dad. It's like, of course he did. Of course he did. No, but basically what happened, kind of the story leading up to it is I always knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur, have my own business, all that stuff. Where that came from was probably a couple things. The first thing, like basic, just like Shark Tank. I have watched that show for forever, loved it. I was just like, so cool that they can just be creative, be the boss, make as much money as they want. So that was kind of cool. Another thing, and this is also something that I don't talk about too much, is my parents were not entrepreneurs. My mom basically raised us. Well, my parents were together. My mom didn't have a traditional job. She was the one raising us. My dad had a corporate job, and he had to commute back and forth from Florida to where we lived in Wisconsin, basically every single weekend for, I don't even know, 5+ years. So that was like I saw that happening, and I was like, I can't work for somebody. Well, I can't work for someone, period. But I knew that I needed, most important, at the time, I was like, okay, how can I have a life where my work isn't dependent on a location and I can still provide a great life and all that fun stuff. But I was like, okay, I can't be relying on somebody else and have those golden handcuffs. And I could tell that pretty early on. So when I went to college, I literally the minute my parents moved me out, I made a video. I posted on Instagram probably a year ago now, but it's literally me all there standing awkwardly saying, all right, here in college, I'm going to work my butt off, start some business so I don't have to work a 9-to-5 job, and I can be sitting on the beach when I'm 40 years old. And that was the video. It's a funny video. So I always knew there was no question. People would always ask, no, what are you studying? What do you plan on doing after college? I'm like, I'm going to start a business. And they're like, oh yeah, no, that's awesome. But what are you going to do after college? What kind of job are you going to get? I'm like, you don't understand. I'm going to start a business. I just didn't know what business I was going to start until Rich Dad Poor Dad came in, literally sophomore year of college. I was just researching online, best business books, best finance books. That book came in. And once I read the book, did some research on Robert Kiyosaki, learned about this real estate thing. That's when the light bulbs were going.
I love that, man. And so many of us have the same journey. For me, I graduated college and I went to sleep on my parents' couch. And I went back to the same job I had in high school, which is very sad. I got a college degree, spent thousands of dollars. He said, "Hey, mom, can I sleep on the couch?" And then she's like, "What job are you gonna get?" Well, I applied to all these jobs. They wanted, job experience. I don't have any of that, but I got this degree. I know you're proud of me, but I can't get a job. So I went back to being a cabana boy, bro. Like, oh my goodness. That was my journey until I picked up Rich Dad Poor Dad. And that's when everything started kicking into
Very young.
gear. And I even copied him to a T where he said he worked for Xerox, the copier company. So I went and got a job with Xerox.
Wow.
So yeah, so definitely Robert Kiyosaki, man. He's got a lot of us started.
That's funny.
So you got started, I guess inspired through Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad Poor Dad. What happens next? How'd you get into either buying the properties? I know you're big into Airbnb and co-hosting. So what was that
Yep.
journey like?
Yeah. So basically, read Rich Dad Poor Dad in basically December. Like I forgot what year it was now. Like 2019 or no 2020. No, 2019 of December. Then I started just listening to the podcast, reading all the books, just kind of absorbing information. And then I signed up to go to a couple in-person meetups. COVID happened, of course. So I had to cancel like the in-person meetups I was going to. I was super bummed about that. That's when, and we were talking earlier about this, that's when I was like, shoot, how am I going to meet people? So that's when I started my podcast I no longer do anymore. But basically just started networking with like as many people like as I could. Bigger Pockets was huge for me. I would just message a bunch of people on there. And then Facebook groups were also big. I just literally randomly messaged people. And then what happened was I went to one of these like webinar slash meetup groups that were online. And at the end of the call, the person who ran the meetup was like, "Hey, I have this mastermind. If you're interested in joining, like, here's my number. Shoot me a text message, and we'll chat over the phone, basically." So I texted him after. I said, "Hey, my name is Bailey. I'm interested in joining." And he gave me a call like pretty soon after that. And he could tell I'm young. I was like 19 at the time. He goes, "Dude, how old are you?" I'm like, "I'm
On the phone,
19."
he's like,
And yeah. And he's like, "Okay, well, basically like the mastermind was he's I don't know, he's like probably in his 40s, maybe 50s. And he's like, "All right, well, this mastermind is like for people looking to buy apartment complexes." I'm like, "I know, that's me at the time." That was what I was
I
going
love it.
for.
I love it.
And long story short, him and I worked out a mutual agreement that I was able to join the mastermind, exchange in some value I provided him on the side. So long story short, because everyone's probably like, how did this like 19-year-old buy his first property? Because it didn't come from my family too. That's like another thing where everyone has their own, pros and good, things in the background. I had a great upbringing, a lot to thank there. But as far as getting into my first property, it came from the people I met in this mastermind group from after networking, after for months and months. Basically these different guys would be like, "Hey, I need help cold calling. I need help underwriting. I need help talking to brokers." And I was like, I'll do it. Because I was just in college and COVID. So after literally months, finally, it worked with one person. Like I underwrote a bunch of deals for people. It never worked out. But then finally, after just keeping it going, I ended up buying my first property, which was actually a fix and flip with one guy in the group. And so I was like, sweet, this is awesome. I was in my junior year at this point, and my junior year we bought 6 properties. So 2 fix and flips, 2 long-term rentals, and then how I got into the short-term rental world
Hold up,
is
pause right there. You're
yeah.
doing all this while you're in college during COVID when the world shut down, everyone's scared. Guys, if you don't have your first property, like there's no excuses. You can do it. And I think you mentioned something huge. And this is why we started Growth House Community as well. Like there's so much power in community and power in proximity, especially. So go shake hands, go to the networking groups. I'm sure you have people DM you as well. Like, "Hey, Bailey, how do I get started in real estate?" I'm like, "Have you gone to any real estate meetups?" Like that's a great place to start. Like get creative and go hang around the people who are doing it. And I love what you did where, the mastermind probably costs thousands of dollars, but you're like, "Hey, I might not be able to afford that, but I'm going to get creative and exchange my value to have access." And then you did that within the group. What value can I provide? Hey, I'll be on the phones calling. No one wants to do that, guys. If someone said, "Hey, Jesse, I know you're looking for more co-living houses," I'll get on calls and underwrite deals. I'll be like, "Awesome, let's make it happen." So I love that. And I think it was really important to, to point that out. So now you dove into short-term rentals shortly after doing these fix and flips?
Yeah, so basically we didn't really have an agenda where it's like whatever property, however we can make money from the property, like we'll do it. And then we found this house. It was on a lake, so it was like this very large house. It slept. We ended up turning it into Airbnb, and it slept like 20 people. And the way that we got into it was we literally saw this house. It needed some work. It was on a lake. The owner had it listed on the market for over 200 days, and he just wanted his price. A lot of what we did was like creative finance. So for this one, we did seller financing, and we kind of just went off of a whim. Like we looked up on Airbnb, the different Airbnbs in the area. Completely by luck and by chance, the property next to us was an Airbnb, and we looked up how much they were charging. And I can't remember off the top of my head, but let's just say it was like $1,000 a night because again, these are big houses in the lake. It's not unreasonable by any means. And we're like, okay, our property is bigger. It's better. It can sleep more people. Just like everything about it is better. It had a basketball court outside. So we said, okay, let's underwrite the deal as if we're going to do the exact same, charging $1,000 a night, and let's see if the numbers work. Well, the numbers worked that way. So then we started charging. We were like, all right, well, let's start charging a little bit more. So we started at $1,200 a night, and we got bookings coming in, then $1,500, and then we got a bunch at $2,000 a night. And that's when like the Airbnb, like that's when it was like a light bulb, kind of like that Robert Kiyosaki Rich Dad Poor Dad moment, kind of the same vibe from the Airbnb world, from that booking, from those bookings.
I love it. And just remind me real quick, I might have missed part of that story. So you were the co-host on that one?
So what happened was, so I bought it with about four or five guys in the mastermind. So these are all dudes that are in like their 40s and 50s who didn't really know technology. So as part of my role in the deal, because I also had a small equity share, like I don't know, 10% of the ownership, but I also
and you got that 10% ownership through the cold calling and underwriting?
Yeah. So yeah, this is one of the deals that was part of the cold calling, underwriting, just basically
got it.
It wasn't a syndication, but it was kind of like being the lead on the deal.
Right.
And then these guys didn't really know technology. They didn't really have the hustle to do all this stuff. I don't blame them, honestly, but I was like, all right, I'll do it. So that's when I started learning about all the different softwares and how to price the properties. I just did a full deep dive in that. And then we got another property that we bought and kind of did a similar thing with. And then how I got into co-hosting was kind of by accident. Literally, I was just posting about all this stuff on social media. And then someone reached out to me and was like, hey, I know someone who needs somebody in North Carolina to help them with their property. Are you interested? I was like, sure. Like, why not? So once I started co-hosting for this guy in North Carolina, and I was like, wow, I just made basically the same amount of money I'm making from the Airbnbs. I'm a part owner, and I can kind of see the numbers, but I didn't have any risk or any of that stuff in the deal, like no money in the deal. I was like, this is awesome. Another referral came in soon after that, and then I was like, okay, like I can make this into an actual business here.
I love that. And then how much did you expand that co-hosting business?
Yeah. So what ended up happening was at the time I got those like 2 referrals. I think I got like 2 more clients quickly after that. And then it was my senior year of college. This almost the start of my second semester, my last semester. I ended up dropping out right then and there. And I was like, I'm going full into my business. I'm just going full into this thing. So over the next year after dropping out, I scaled to 30 units. So 30 units. And that was like my basically my only focus. I wasn't buying any properties at that time. I was strictly just co-hosting. And I was co-hosting also for a lot of these guys who were in my mastermind group because there was I kind of got in early, but there ended up being 100 plus people in this group. So, and I was kind of the guy who was doing the co-hosting thing. So after I grew to about 30 units, I kind of hit this point, and this could be a long story, so I won't make it too long, but I'll share the details. I essentially, it was kind of like one of those moments where I kind of dreamed of having a huge business and all these properties. And then I was like, but I kind of took a step back. Like I didn't love every owner I was working with. There was, I didn't, like the properties that I was partners on, they were making money, but I didn't love having to talk about every freaking decision with people. Like there were so many pieces where I don't know if I'd say I'm an introvert, but I like to keep my circle small, and it almost like got too mentally big where I was like, I don't want to talk about should we get a new doorknob for this property? Like I just want to do it. So
Right.
that was just a random example. But then so at that point I sold all the properties I owned. So two of them were fix and flips that I bought my junior year. So I had four at the time
Hmm.
afterwards. So I sold the four properties, and then the people that I didn't enjoy co-hosting for, kind of cut them out there. So then I
Mm.
went down to like 10-ish properties that I co-hosted. And then that's when I started saying, okay, I'm going to kind of keep this on the buying side, just me. And then in the
Hmm.
past year or so, that's when I've been buying these properties just by myself.
That's amazing. So Bailey, you dropped out and never even tried to get a job. You said, I'm all in. I
Yeah.
see the light. I'm experiencing the cash flow from real estate. I'm doing the co-hosting thing. I'm all in. So at this point, you had zero properties because you sold them, but you had about 10 that you were co-hosting, and probably one of the better performing ones.
Yeah.
And so then what was the transition from there to, hey, I'm going to start investing again? Because I know you have about 3 properties right now, correct?
Yeah. So once I sold the properties with these guys, or really started the process of selling them, that's when I was at the point where I was like, all right, I'm out of these. I'm now going to just go on my own. So it happened pretty like fast, I would say. Right when I kind of informed the partners, hey guys, I'm out of here. That's when I was like looking for my next or my next property, but the first one that was just going to be me.
And were you looking for cash flow or appreciation or a mix?
Yeah. So still, what I'm doing today is strictly cash flow.
Hmm.
That's like that's like the main thing that I'm looking for, because just like seeing it the last couple of years with, I guess being on my own, as you know, not having a job, like appreciation isn't going to pay my bills right now. I'm sure it's going to
Yeah.
be great in the future, and I think my strategy will end up like evolving and shifting a little bit as I get more properties, as I have more money coming in. But right now, it's strictly cash flow.
Hmm. And then walk me through how you got, I think you got one with a DSCR loan. And that's a
Yep.
loan that's very popular, especially right now. If you're not bankable or lendable, or,
Yep.
there's reasons why, which I'll let you explain. Walk me through that deal, because I think it'll be really good for people to understand.
Totally. Yeah. I've done two DSCR loans. My first one, this is when I was 22, and I just sold these properties. So I dropped out like I think like 9 months prior. So I was basically just doing research on different loans, or stuff like that, and I was calling a bunch of different lenders that I just found on Google. And I was like, all right, I've got this. I want to buy a property. It's gonna be an investment property. I don't have any W-2. I don't have any this. I don't have any this. Can you do the loan? And a lot of people were just telling me no, 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 no. And
Hmm.
then I just like did some more research, like how can I get a mortgage if I have no tax returns, no this, no that. Because at first when I was talking to the lenders, I didn't know all the requirements. So it more started like, hey, like would you guys be able to do this loan? They're like, yeah, just send me
Mm.
over your tax returns, your W-2, this, your pay stubs. And I'm like, you don't understand. Like I don't
I'm a
have any of
college
that stuff.
dropout.
Yeah, I don't have any of that stuff. So
Yeah.
I honestly don't even know how I found out about the DSCR loan. Must have just been
Hmm.
from online. But yeah, finally called a lender, and he's like, "Yeah, we can do the loan." The biggest downsides to these DSCR loans is that the interest rates are higher. But at the end of the day, it's like you're getting your foot in the door, getting a
Hmm.
property. Which I always tell people, like your first property isn't going to be you know the last one. It's not going to be the only one. It's not going to
Yes.
make you a gazillion dollars. That first one's just to give you proof of concept and prove to yourself that you can do it. So that was for me
100%
like,
agree on that.
yeah.
100%. And I think
People,
also an interesting thing that you mentioned was you kept on asking different lenders. And I think some people are so scared to even have that initial conversation, like, hey, I'm not ready yet. Because there's a mix in this community. We have people that
yeah,
are just getting started and looking for their first property. When they have the money to do a deal, they're like, hey, I don't know. I'm like, go talk to an agent, go talk to a mortgage lender, like, go talk to these people.
yeah.
And then if they say no for whatever reason, go do some more research and find out who else you need to talk to. And that sounds like exactly what you did. And you went through the lenders. Like, how many did you call before you found someone that was like, hey, I'll do this with you?
Honestly, I called a lot, and I remember too. I was so fed up. I can't even think of a number to be honest, but I was so fed up with all these different requirements that all these lenders were throwing at me. I remember I called this one lender, and I was like, "Okay, so do you?" He answered the phone. I'm like, "Okay, hey, my name is Bailey. Like, do you um do you like do you need pay stubs? Do you need this? Do you need this?" And he goes like are you gonna like introduce yourself, are you gonna like are you just like calling and just like asking me all these questions? And like I get it, at like looking back, like it was definitely rude, but I was so fed up with like getting all these questions. I was like, let me just get these out of the way, let me get all the requirements out of the way. Do you have this? So I called a lot to the point where I was so tired of getting asked all these questions. And sometimes that's what it takes, but again, DSCR loan, you don't really need
So,
much to.
so
Mhm.
why did you get approved by this one particular lender?
I think once I started learning, because I was just calling like mortgage lenders, and then like I started
Hmm.
kind of broad. Then I was like, do I need to do a commercial loan? Do I need to do like a real estate investment loan? I just didn't know what I was really doing. But then and then all the other problem too is half these people don't pick up the phone. So it's it's like I'm calling all these people, then they're calling me back, and I'm like I'm writing down who I'm talking to. But the one that I ended up using, honestly, they just picked up the phone and they just said yes to me. Honestly, like they were just like, yeah, we can do it, and they were just kind of fast with me. And it's I heard some statistic that it's like I don't know 80% or something of the vendors that people pick is just by speed of response. So these people just this was like 2 years ago now, but whatever. But they just ended up responding to me fast and helping me when I needed it.
I love it. So real quick, we should have said this before because people are probably listening like Jesse Bailey, what the heck is a DSCR loan? So just explain real quick why you would want to do a DSCR loan and what it is.
Yeah. So a debt service coverage ratio loan, DSCR loan, is essentially a certain loan product that is really for people who either like don't have a W-2 job. Basically, like the way I explain it is you don't look good to the banks. Like
Hmm.
if you don't have great job history, or if you don't have um great tax returns, or if you don't have any of that stuff where you'd almost be nervous going into the bank, then chances are you'd probably qualify for a DSCR loan, because the two things that they look at, from my experience, I'm not a DSCR lender, but the two things that they honed in on for me was one, credit score, which I don't even know how big of a deal that is. I think that helps with the rate, but credit score is important. And then the second thing is your property. That's like the biggest thing is they're going to look at your property and say, will this make sense as a long-term rental? AK, will you make more money? Will you be able to cover the mortgage with the rental income from this property? And if you can have a big enough spread, and every lender is a little bit different, but it's like, I think it's like 1.2. So if your rent is at least 1.2 times greater than your mortgage, then you're good to go. So that's kind of a little bit more about them.
No, that's great. So then you got that first property, and I'm guessing they probably looked at it on the long term, but you're like, hey, I know I'm going to at least make it on the long term, but really I'm in this for the short term rental because that's going to make
Yep.
so much more. So what
Yep.
did the numbers look like? How much were you able to cash flow once you got the loan and the mortgage?
Yep. So I got the property, and initially I was charging $2,500 a month, and the mortgage is like 700 something a month. That's principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. So yeah, I'm making a pretty good spread. Then I got another inquiry, but basically like those people were there for a couple months. Then they moved out. Then I started raising the price a little bit to $2,800 a month, and then that was riding out for a couple months.
Okay, hold on. 2,800 bucks a month. Are we doing a midterm rental? Was it on Airbnb?
Yep. So these were midterm rentals, and actually, funny enough though, they did come from Airbnb. So these were all inquiries that just came through Airbnb.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, one of them was like a traveling construction crew that needed the property. Um, and then in the very beginning, I was doing some shorter stays. I mean, I don't honestly know, I don't know the full of it. My account was like, all right, there's only 60 days left of the year, whatever. Like, do a short term stay. It'll help for some tax benefits that I actually don't even understand. But some of it was short term in the beginning, but I was still able to book it up on a short term basis and still
Mm-hmm.
average right around 2,500 a month. And then once the year was over, I'm like, all right, I'm going straight midterm on this. And that's when
Yeah.
I was able to continue to increase it.
And then for the midterm rental, for those listening, I'm guessing, Bailey, that you furnished it. And then another question I had was, if you're getting inquiries on Airbnb, did you keep it on the platform, or were you also doing a way to like kind of get them off platform and sign a separate agreement?
Yeah. So basically, what happened was, so the property actually came furnished, and it was like this was completely by luck, completely by chance. But I'll say it was completely luck. So there's no answers or much about that. But I was seeking out properties for Airbnb, so it wasn't just like
Mm-hmm.
I stumbled upon it. But so basically, I was calling different properties. I saw this one for sale. I called the real estate agent and I kind of told him what I would want to do with it. And he goes, "Oh, this is an Airbnb." I'm like, "No way." So he actually send me over like the listing, because I think they took it off at that point. He sent me over how much money they were making. And this is another big point. The realtor that I connected with was managing this Airbnb. Like, it was completely by luck. And so I was like, all right, send me over all the information on it. But he was showing that he was making about, I think it was $2,500 a month on Airbnb. And I had a feeling I could do better. So I kind of started it 2,500 a month. And then that was on Airbnb. Then I got these two guys traveling construction crews. I got them at 2,800 a month. And then what happened was, this was so on a different one of my properties that I bought, or it might have honestly been a coasting client. An insurance company offered us $3,500 per month for a property. It was in a different city, but I was like, whoa, if I can get 3,500 for that one, I don't see why I can't get it for this one. So then I got an inquiry on Airbnb. I ended up getting them off platform because they were a traveling construction crew, so I can find their company information. And then I pitched it to them at 3,500 a month, and they're still
Mm-hmm.
in there today.
That's
So
awesome.
basically, after a year of renting this thing, from the moment I bought it to a year later, it brought in 30. I was just looking at this. It was 30 something $1,000 of income and $18,000 in profit, not including like reserves. So reserves are built into the $18,000. But
Mm-hmm.
the easiest way I explain it, because I know there's a lot of people talking about, like, I made $30,000 from the property. So however you want to say the net profit or whatever, but there's
Mm-hmm.
$18,000 after a year from this one property. So I was able to increase it pretty rapidly.
That's amazing. And some people are probably stuck because I know I am. You said $700 is the mortgage.
Yep.
So, and you're charging 28. Let's break that down real quick. And how the heck is this possible? So, where is a property? I guess you can give me general area, and then you were looking at it as an Airbnb. You found it, and they said it was an Airbnb already. So, why were they looking to sell? I guess is another question. If they were making so
Yeah.
much money from this property.
Yeah. So this is in Indiana. It's basically a suburb or a town outside the city. And the reason why this was another thing that was like kind of, it was nerve wracking buying my first property too, alone, because I was like, all right, why is this guy selling it if it's an Airbnb already and it's doing pretty well? Basically, the response that I got, that I kind of just took and ran with, and I didn't really do much research on it, but basically, the guy who owned the property owns like 50 other properties in the city.
Mm.
And basically, the realtor just told me he kind of just, he didn't really give me a good answer. He kind of just said like he kind of offload some of his properties. He just kind of like internal reasons. He didn't really give me a great reason other than the fact that like this dude has a lot of properties. He just wants to offload this one, and I didn't really look into it much further. And so that was kind of it, honestly.
Bailey, hit him up. Be like, what other properties do you want to offload, man? Come on.
Well, yeah. So I actually did, because this guy,
Yeah.
because the guy had a bunch of Airbnbs, and the realtor that represented both of us
Hmm.
was also managing these Airbnbs. So in the very beginning, like right afterwards, I was like, "Oh, any other properties he wants to sell?" And then he was just asking, honestly, a lot of money for like not so great properties. So I was like, "All right." And then I kind of backed off. And honestly, I should probably hit him up again because it's been a little while.
Yeah, man. So how'd you find the other two properties? Just like quick stories on those.
Yeah, quick stories on the other two. Um, One of them was on the market for quite a while. They slashed the price by 15,000. By the way, like, it was listed for 80,000. Then they slashed it to 65,000. And I called my realtor. I'm like, "Hey, what do you think about this property?" "All right, it's pretty good." I was like, "All right, cool." So I ended up buying that one. That was a Burr B&B. So I used the Burr strategy. we can talk more about it if we have time, but I basically completely failed with it because the refinance value was way lower than I thought it was going to be. So I thought this was going to be a no money out of pocket deal because I had a private lender come in. But then once I refinanced it, I had to come up with like $22,000 or $24,000 to close it because I completely messed up on the appraisal of it. So that was a fun one. And then the third one.
So wait, let's stop right there.
Yeah.
How'd you come up with that 22?
Luckily, I had it, to be honest with
Yeah.
you. Like, but this kind of plays in, and this is something I haven't really shared either. So at the same time, so I bought the property in April of 2023. Like literally, my 1 year anniversary is coming up, and then it took some time to renovate it, and then I needed to. I extended my taxes to. That was like a whole different story, but basically, long story short, in order to refinance it, I had to officially file the taxes, and I was still within the timeline. I just didn't do it yet. But I needed to file it to refinance. I was like, all right, but I didn't know the appraisal at this point. So I was like, so in my head, I was like, okay, the property's going to appraise properly. I'm going to have the money, or I'm gonna have no money out of my pocket, and it's going to be great. So then, since I knew that, I was like, all right, well, I have more money sitting here. I'm going to go buy another property. Well, I was under contract on this third property, and the way I found it was on market. There were no pictures online of it, just the outside, like 2 pictures of the outside. And it was a triplex I mentioned. And the realtor basically said, if you're interested in buying it, the listing agent, like you have to be under contract before looking at the units. I was like, all right, well, there's no risk to it because I can always back out if need be. But you needed to submit an offer, and they need to accept the offer for you to even see the units on the inside, which I was kind of like, all right, like, why not? I mean, I'll go under contract. I can always back out, and there's no penalty for doing so within the window.
Right.
So long story short, I was under contract on this third one while trying to refinance the second one. And then I was like, shoot, now I got to allocate some of these funds towards the second one. And honestly, luckily slid by. But I made it happen.
And I think that's okay. Everyone listening right now, these are stories we all have as investors. I have a couple stories where I'm like, I don't know if I want to share that one. Whereas like we make it work. Like, especially for your first deal, guys, just go get it done. You're not going to know everything. I still don't know all the terminology. I joke. I'm like, what's PITI? Obviously, I know what it is. But like, guys, you don't need to know everything about real estate to get started.
Yeah.
Bailey's over here like, oh, this is going to be a home run. Now he's got $22,000 to pay. Yeah, that actually does happen at times, but you figure it out. You get creative. So I actually love people sharing this stuff because I feel like too many people try to just hide all the learning lessons. And that's where we learn the most. And these are the stories that I resonate with. And I'm like, okay, I'm not alone. Like, it's okay to have mistakes happen. And guess what? Everyone's going to have mistakes happen.
Totally. And then, I totally agree. And like 2 more things on this note is like with the property, because I did obviously my research before, maybe not on everything because it appraised wrong, but I knew that, I mean, it was renting for $3,500 a month. And my mortgage on this one was it's like $585. Actually, just I had to look at the loan number today to get my new insurance. So it's $585 or $580, something like that. So I was like, okay, even though I have to come out of pocket $22,000 or $24,000, I'm renting out for $3,500. My mortgage is like $585. I'm gonna get my money back in like less than a year for sure. And if I needed to figure out a way to get a loan from somebody, like anybody for that time period, like I would have made that happen. And then the second thing that I want to mention, and everyone can assess their own risk their own way, but I think like for me, when I buy properties, I'm not afraid of lowering my bank account. I'll just say that lightly. And as I go on, I'll be more risk adverse for sure and whatever. But right now, like for that triplex that I bought, after I just spent $22,000 refinancing a property, then I spent $30,000 closing the second property. My bank account was low. Like to be honest, it was below $1,000. Like just straight up. And but like it's I didn't really have an emotional draw because I was like, I'm buying 2 great assets right now. And they're
Mm-hmm.
cash flowing properties. And sure, like something could have went terribly wrong. All these hypotheticals could have happened, but I would have figured them out at the end of the day. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. That's just for me. And luckily, I don't have much overhead. Like I have an apartment that I rent, and now I have a car. But besides those two things, like I will do anything to make it work, which is why I don't really get attached to money much anymore. I don't really care about
Mm-hmm.
buying anything except properties. So that's why I'm just like I
Mm-hmm.
save my money and then I buy properties, and then now I'm starting to save and stuff like that. But in the beginning, I just don't get too attached.
Well, I think you hit a perfect point. You're talking about cash flowing properties.
Yeah,
You're not taking that big of a gamble if you know it's at least going to, break even or make you
yeah.
some money with a long term. Imagine what it does as a midterm or a short term. So I love that. Are you buying all these in the same location?
They're all in Indiana. They're in two
Uh,
different cities.
okay.
Yeah.
So Indiana is a good spot then.
Indiana's a great spot, I think.
Yeah.
Honestly, in the Midwest, there's a lot of good spots. Like a lot of good spots in the Midwest. If you just look up literally like just any like Midwest city, there's so many terrible Airbnbs. Like you can just look at the
Mm-hmm.
pictures and be like, all right, this person has no idea what they're doing. This person has no idea what they're doing. Like the competition is just low, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
Like
So,
that's like
so
the
let's
biggest thing.
let's do a quick hypothetical. Well, actually, it's not hypothetical because people out here listening are like, damn, I want to do what Bailey's doing. So people want to go find properties that are able to produce this type of cash flow. Sure, I can find them properties as a co-living home here in Phoenix, Arizona, but you have a strategy where it sounds like there's a lot less money, down, and the properties are a lot less expensive.
Yeah.
So walk like in like 60 seconds, what would be step one, step two, step three if someone was just like, hey, how do I get started? And then
Yep.
maybe they'll reach out to you for, more guidance or advice.
Totally. Yeah. So first thing is like you got to pick the market, right? That's everyone's like,
Mm-hmm.
that's everyone's biggest hurdle that I've seen that everyone comes to me for. So a couple quick things with picking a market. The first thing is, and these were things I looked at. I wanted cities that were above, like around 50,000 people or above. Some people say 50,000 people, that's tiny. Some people say,
Mm-hmm.
oh, that's a pretty good city. So it's a total arbitrary number. It's totally made up. You could do 30,000 population cities. You can do 300,000 person population cities. I just wanted some large amount of people in the city. So that was my
Yeah.
thing, 50,000 or above. And I just wanted a city that wasn't going down. Like Gary, Indiana, for example, they had like 200,000 people in 10 years ago, and now they have like 60,000. Like major
Mm-hmm.
decline, and Google will just tell you that. Doesn't mean you can't make money there. It's just again the way that I'm doing it. And then the second biggest thing for midterm rentals specifically that works in any market, especially the Midwest, is you go on Airbnb and you put yourself in these midterm rental guests' shoes. Their shoes are this. The two biggest things you need to know. One, a lot of the times they book last minute. Two, they stay for about 3 to 6 months. So if you go on Airbnb and you say, okay, I'm that person. I'm going to book last minute for 3 months. Plug that into Airbnb as if you're a guest. And also to like imagine if you're a family. So now you need three bedrooms. You don't want one bathroom, you want two bathrooms. So plug that into Airbnb. If you do that and you see how many properties are available, the less amount of properties available, the more inclined I am to invest there. If you do that search in
Mm-hmm.
Orlando, Florida, you're going to see thousands of properties available. It doesn't mean Orlando's a bad market by any means. It's just for my strategy, way too much competition. If you look in a city and there's two properties available, those are the cities that I like. If there's no properties available, I like it even more. But that's like my easiest tip to knowing how saturated a market is and how easy it is to break in.
Yeah, talk about saturation. Scottsdale, Arizona, man. Oh,
Scottsdale, yeah.
everyone put their house up for Airbnb. You should have saw the Super Bowl. They were just cleaning out their house just to go live somewhere just for the Super Bowl weekend.
Yeah.
It was wild.
And March Madness too just happened, right? Was that big
Honestly, we have
there?
a lot of amazing events. Yeah, March Madness was just this past weekend. Okay, personal question I want to ask that I'm sure someone else is thinking. What are some good softwares? And before I ask that about Airbnb and softwares, the smart pricing on Airbnb versus like a Price Labs, is it worth using a Price Labs over Airbnb?
Okay, so it's 1,000% worth it to use Price Labs over smart pricing. But the biggest thing, like you can't blame smart pricing and you can't blame Price Labs or any of those pricing softwares to just do it all for you. So the reason why I use Price Labs over smart pricing, it's because I have more control over it and I can manipulate things a lot easier. At the end of the day, the people that say, oh, this pricing software is not good because it gave me bad pricing or it made my pricing too high, they're just using the software wrong. So it's not like some magical software that's just going to do it for you. It just makes it easier. So I like using Price Labs. I don't like using smart pricing because you just don't have control. So
Got it. And then what about what's another platform that I personally use? Hospitable. I think
yeah,
you might have changed their name, but Hospital versus the Airbnb feature now that you can just do automated message.
yeah. I still use Hospitable. Love
Okay.
Hospitable. Another thing too for people is like every software when it comes to these channel managers are called, where you can essentially, and I'll talk about why they're so good, but manage like your Airbnb listing and your Verbo listing all in one place. It just makes it easier. You can do a lot of automations on Airbnb, but the problem is it's like, well, what about Verbo? And then what about like direct bookings / manually inputting bookings? So I like using a channel manager just because it keeps everything in one central place.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay. What's one other software? Give us some. You've already given us so much value in gold, but just give me one software that I don't know.
One software that you don't know. Well, one software that I really like. I use Baselane for my rent collection and all my banking stuff. I don't know if you've
Okay.
heard of them.
No.
They're
I
they're I
use
would say like
Base
they're
Lang. Base Lang is
no.
my Spanish tutor. So this
That's
is
funny.
called Base Lane.
Yeah, Baselane,
Okay.
and it's essentially. I don't know if you've heard of Relay or
Mm-mm.
there's a couple of software that are kind of similar in ways, but Baselane essentially it's like a virtual bank, if you will. So I have like different checkings account for all my properties. I have debit cards that are all online. I can do rent collection, bookkeeping through the software, um, and their bank accounts that I keep the money in. They're
Mm-hmm.
high yield savings accounts. So they kind of actually just switched this on me. They used to have it where it's like automatic. You get like 4 or 5%. Now you have to have a certain amount of money to hit different thresholds, which I was like kind of annoying. But right now I get like I think 3% cash back, or sorry, 3% interest on my money
Mm-hmm.
just sitting there in a secure savings account. So that's kind of
That's
cool.
awesome.
That definitely makes like the finance part of running the business so much easier. Collecting
Mm-hmm.
rent, bookkeeping, stuff like that, all in there.
I love it, man. Let's switch topics a little bit. Favorite book or podcast that you recommend for someone who is getting into Airbnb?
Ooh, okay. Favorite book or podcast? Yeah, that's tough. For Airbnb specifically, I would say that's tough. Cause to be honest, like I read a couple Airbnb books, like
Mm-hmm.
kind of midway through my journey, and I don't know, I didn't, I truthfully haven't found like an Airbnb book that's like, oh, this is a great book to read. I would say for podcasts though, honestly, like I think Bigger Pockets does a great job interviewing, like obviously people in all different spheres, but
Mm-hmm.
they're like really beginner level, which I like. So I would say just like I've seen a lot of them too on YouTube recently. They interview a lot of
Mm-hmm.
Airbnb people, so I would just check out those channels.
Bigger pockets, look for
Yeah,
Airbnb, featured
yep,
guests.
yep,
Okay, this question does not make much sense since you're only 23 years old. But let's say if you could go back and tell the Bailey who is just getting started in real estate and you made that selfie video for the first time, you're like, hey, I'm going to become an investor, a business owner. What would you tell that Bailey?
yeah. I was thinking about this because like I've been asked this before. The biggest thing for me is I didn't understand. Like I just didn't. It's kind of like I didn't know what I didn't know. And the thing that I
Mm-hmm.
wish I knew back then is that there's different like it's kind of hard to explain, but like there's different stages and there's different modes. So like for example, we talked about before, like I'm in cash flow mode right now. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
really understand like how like I thought I had to buy apartment buildings because that's just what like rich people do. And it's like sure, like that is could be one of the things that a rich person does, but also how can you start? So just understanding that, and again, you can buy a apartment complex for your first property, but what I needed at the time was cash flow. I didn't really fully understand that until I kind of started doing it. I did fix and flips. I did a long-term rental. Looking back, I'm like, the long-term rental really didn't serve me anything besides experience, which was huge. Like, I cannot discount the
Mm-hmm.
experience I got from it. But in reality, like, I probably should have looked for something that was more cash flowing. That property didn't cash flow much.
Mm-hmm.
So now, like knowing what I know now, like I can see, okay, I can build a portfolio till I get to this amount of cash flow. Then from there, I may switch some focus and go for some more appreciation plays. I don't exactly know where like the next plays will be yet. All I know is right
Mm-hmm.
now I'm in the cash flow stage, and that's probably what
I,
I wanted to let myself know.
I love that answer. And I was just thinking of my own answer when I asked the question. And I think mine was just be like, just go get started.
Yeah,
Like we talked about already, like you're gonna fail. It is like you are going to, and accept it, and just be like, this is gonna be a learning lesson. Like, especially people listening right now, you're not gonna have a home run on your first house.
yeah.
Go get started. But I love what you talked about because it's perfect for my next question. And I'm just throwing this question at you. So if you had to come up with a consistent 5K of cash flow in the next 6 months, how would you do it?
If I had to come, so is this assuming I already have some money stockpiled or no?
Sure, let's say you have like 20 grand. So nothing
Okay,
crazy, but you have a little bit stockpiled. And
yeah,
I'm curious where you take this, whether you're going to go like, well, I can just go co-host or I want to invest in
yeah.
property. So I want to hear what you say.
Yeah. So what I'd probably do if I had like 6 months time and like 20 grand, because to be honest, like 20 grand isn't really enough to get that first, unless you go creative. But again, starting out, it's way tougher to go all these crazy routes. So what I would probably do is I'd probably co-host to start.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd have the 20 grand in my back pocket. I'd probably try to get some co-hosting clients, build that up to, you can for sure get to 5 grand alone just from that. But I'd probably want to get 3 to 5 clients that would probably get you to $3,000 to $5,000 per month. And then as you're stacking the cash, you'll be in a position to buy a property. So you'll have,
Mm-hmm.
over a couple months, 40, 50,000, depending on how the numbers lay out. And then I would take that 50,000 and buy a property that's going to also earn you 3,000 a month, um, roughly. And then you can also keep the coaching clients and continue to grow it there. So then you're over the 5,000 mark. But that's what I would do if I started with that 20 grand.
I love this because it gives people different scenarios of how to escape that rat race. Because if
Yeah.
you're in a corporate job, you're making, let's say $6,000 to $10,000 a month. Okay, break it down. That's not that much money. You
Yeah.
can do this. Like he just said, with 3 to 5 clients, even 3 clients, you can make 5 grand. So
Yeah.
here's the strategy that Bailey just said: work a corporate job on the side, get 3 co-hosting clients, do that for another 6 months, and add some more clients, and then now you can actually invest in property. And then maybe once the properties are more passive cash flow, then you can end up doing whatever you want. And for a lot of people, it's starting a business that they're actually passionate about. Or you can just double down, I think like Bailey's currently doing, and just do more co-hosting clients because now it's a system. And once
Yeah.
you get good at something, it becomes kind of fun and
Yeah.
almost like confuses you, like, damn, maybe I am passionate about this. Because when you get wins, like what's the quote? I think Tim Grover says it, like, winning is more fun than fun is fun. And
Yeah.
for me, it is true. Like once I'm winning at something, like it could have been terrible in the beginning, but that success, it just makes you want to keep going and getting more and getting after it.
Yeah. One thing I do want to mention though, because I had a friend, and the past like year and a half, I'd say maybe 2 years, he was kind of in this dilemma of like what kind of business he wants to start. He knew he wanted to start a business, and like this just relates so much to a lot of people. And he was you could say some shiny object going thing to thing, thing to thing, and then so me and this guy, we talk every single day, and we got to a point recently where we're like, dude, everything sucks. Like there's like, don't get me wrong, I love midterm rentals, like it is my favorite thing, but it has its downsides. Like co-hosting, it has its downsides. My friend, he's doing like some like social media marketing and stuff like that, and it has some downsides. Like So what we realized is when like you're searching for something, like, whoa, what if I just do this? Like this would be so easy, so fun. And then you start to hit problems and you're like, this is it. So just for everyone out there, to get to that first like 5,000 a month, you should like what you're doing because it's gonna keep you motivated, and you shouldn't just do something that you absolutely hate because there's so many options out there. But just know that you're not gonna like, I don't know. I think you're gonna like it, but I don't think you're gonna wake up every day and be like, I am going to do like email marketing for people. Like, I don't know. Maybe I just haven't found that thing that gets me that excited. Again, don't get me wrong. I love midterm rentals, but I honestly more like, I love midterm rentals, period. And then on the side, I like now what it does for me so much more. And that's what I get really excited about. But I just remember, and like with my friend and even me in the beginning, and switching from like, do I like one-on-one coaching? Do I like to just do a course for people? Like, it's like they all had their pros and cons. So don't think that if you have that feeling that you don't really like it, that you shouldn't do it anymore. It's like, no, stick with it until you get to that 5,000 a month. It's really not a crazy, it's going to take time, but it's not some crazy $1 million per month, obstacle.
It's so true. That's a mic drop right there, man. We're very much a go-giving community. So no one's going to reach out to you and say, hey, Bailey, great podcast. I want to pick your brain. If they do, let me know. I'm going to talk to them. So we want to provide value first. So what's something that as a community, if someone reaches out, what kind of value can we bring you?
I appreciate that. That's funny because I've been getting a lot of that recently. And it's,
see, don't be those people.
Yeah. I post on my Instagram. I was like, I don't even know what to do at this point because people are like, can I pick your brain? Can I pick your brain? And I was like, man, like this is just terrible. I guess this is just a tip. And sometimes I use this as well, is if I'm going to like reach out to somebody, like don't go straight for like the ask right away. Like sometimes if I see someone, for example, who comments on my videos or like comments on my stuff or in a genuine way, and I'll be like, then I'm like, yeah, like this is awesome. Like this is like a mutual exchange. I get the DMs that are like, hey man, want to pick your brain? Heard you on the podcast. I'm just like, I don't know. So I love connecting with people, and it's not even that I'm looking for something in particular. So it's like hard for me to even say like I'm looking for this one thing. But
here, I got one for you since you mentioned it before the podcast starts.
Yeah.
You're looking for more people to check out your YouTube. My man is posting every single day, guys.
That's true.
I just started posting four times a week on podcasts, and that's without, me, my face, and doing all that. Like that's a lot of effort and time. So congrats on being committed to that. You've been doing it, I think you said, since February.
Yeah.
So show this guy some love. Go support him on YouTube. Go subscribe, but also there's gonna be a lot of value.
Bell icon.
Hit that, you know the drill. So, my man, I appreciate it. I know we went like a little bit over your time. So, Bailey, thank you so much for, being on the show today. And we'll definitely connect in person when I'm out there. Wait, are you in Indiana or Carolina?
North Carolina.
All right. Yeah. See them Uyghurs out there. I'm going to head your way soon.
Cool, man. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Growth House Podcast, Jesse Ray, Bailey Kramer. We're out.
Peace.